Kia ora, my name's Renee. I like to read books and then talk about them on the internet. Hi, hello, how are we all? It's that time of year where I wheel out the same kind of videos that I love to film. This one being no different. It is definitely a favorite of mine. 20 books for the subsequent year that we're about to enter into. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about 20 books that I want to read in 2025. It's a fun little challenge I like to give myself. I don't always achieve it, but it's definitely fun compiling books for the year, thinking about things that I'm excited to read, looking at authors that I know that I love, creating like a really interesting, well-rounded reading list for the year. I don't know. It's always been something that I've enjoyed putting together, reading through, and then eventually growing bored of. I'm optimistic about this. There's some good stuff in here. I've given myself a bit of leeway with some things. I think last year I was rather ambitious with the big giant books that I put together, but we've got like a nice mix here. I think this might go well. First up on the pile is Ways of Seeing by John Berger. This is a non-fiction book about contemporary art, and it's quite a famous, influential book when it comes to the language of art and the ways that we kind of look at things, what contemporary art tries to convey, imagery, messaging, all that kind of stuff. Surprised that I haven't read this as a person who studied art, but I missed out on a lot, so I'm making up for that in my adult years. I realised that I don't read enough non-fiction, and I want to try to change that in 2025, not as a set goal, but just something to try to be aware of. So we're gonna merge my love of art with the need to read more non-fiction. Second book I have on my list is The Savage Detectives by Roberto Bolaño. I have not read any Bolaño, and I'm kind of unsure where to start. This feels a bit, I mean, it's massive, so it is a bit of an undertaking, but I don't know, this feels kind of like an easy one to approach. It's a bit of a kind of a mystery thriller. The title would suggest some kind of detective work going on. A lot of people who've spoken to me about Bolaño have said that this is their favourite, or this is a great place to start, so we're going to go there, we're going to do that, and I think this will be a good time. The only thing I don't like about this book is how big it is, but if I find a smaller copy in the meantime, maybe that'll make me want to pick it up quicker, but this is just what we're working with. Up next, we have another man, potentially someone that everybody loves, Anthony Bourdain, Kitchen Confidential, sorry. Adventures in the Culinary Underbelly. Bleh. This is his memoir. He, if you don't know, famous chef, did a lot of travel style documentary, TV show type work around food. He's very famous and beloved in the culinary world. Rupert got to meet him at a talk, and even has a signed copy of one of his books. He sadly died before his time, and it's kind of always been, I don't know, just a loved figure in the culinary world. And I've heard that this is great, so I'm gonna do that, ticking the list of non-fiction as well. Also noticed that the top 4 books that I have so far are all written by men, which was not a conscious thing that I've done. Yeah, there's quite a few men in the mix of this year, which is something different for me, but not necessarily on purpose, but I'm happy to see it. The next book is In Cold Blood by Truman Capote. One of my reading goals is to read 3 classic books this year, and this to me feels like a classic. I feel like this is probably his most well-known work. It kind of straddles between fiction and non-fiction. It's this kind of true crime investigation writing that he was really well known for in this story. He's kind of blurring the lines between what is fiction and what is non-fiction, and how can journalistic stories about true events, true crime, be told in interesting storytelling ways. So we're ticking multiple boxes with this one, and I'm excited to finally get to it. Okay, switching it up with a woman, we have The Last Samurai by Helen DeWitt. I have been wanting to read this book for the longest time. A few years ago, read back to back quite a few stories centered around child protagonists who were somewhat precocious, and wanted to pick something else up but kind of didn't know where to go. This came on my radar through lots of people reading it online, and I've had it for a few years, and it feels like now might be the right time to pick it up. Yeah, I think the title suggests something completely different than what it is. I know it's about a young, precocious boy and his mother. It's set in London. We've got some Greek stories being read and all these things. I don't know. I just know that I want to read another good child protagonist story, and I think this is going to fulfill that. Speaking of classics, I haven't read any Joan Didion in a while, and felt like I needed to do some Joan Didion this year. So I'm going to read Slouching Towards Bethlehem. It's a classic Joan. It is probably where I think I should go next. I've read My Year of Magical Thinking, and I've read her earliest, newest essay collection, Let Me Tell You What I Mean. I think that's what it's called. I can't remember. Let me tell you what I mean. Yeah, that's what it's called. I don't know. This just feels like the next best place to go. It's an essay collection. Joan's writing about California during the 60s. I'm just feeling that vibe. Who knows whether it will last throughout the year, but I don't know. I was just thinking about authors that I haven't read in a while, and books that I feel like I should be getting to sooner rather than later. Next book, Erasure by Percival Everett, another man in the mix. I read James this year, 2024, it's still 2024 for now. I loved it, and I was really excited about the long backlist of work that Percival Everett has, and like, where do I want to go next? I watched American Fiction, which was the film adapted from this book. I loved it, but I know that this book is just going to be worlds better. It's about a man who is a writer who is trying to, I guess, write his next big novel, but is also trying not to succumb to the pressures of the public and the things that black authors are kind of falling into the trap of writing. I think it's going to be really smart and funny, and I can't wait to read more. Percival Everett. So that one is there. Okay, How Should a Person Be by Sheila Heady. This is the last Heady on her list of books that I own that I need to read. I heard mixed things about this one. I know some people love it and some people hate it. So it'll be interesting to see where I fall on that. I don't really know what it's about. I don't really need to know. It's Heady. I know it's going to be good writing. I know she's probably going to touch on some great themes. Yeah, it's really just a must read at this stage, and the only one I have left. So there we go. The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I have happily admitted that in 2024 I've become a fantasy girly and am looking for other things that I might enjoy in that genre. This book was one of the only kind of genre fiction novels that featured on the New York Times top 100 books of the 21st century. I was intrigued because I don't know what it's about. I know that it's fantasy, so I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to read the first book, see how I go, and exciting if I enjoy it. Because then you just have the prospect of knowing that the story continues. That's what I like about series and these genre fiction novels. It feels like the story is kind of like a lot more expansive. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This is one of those books that I have seen a lot at book fairs. It's at every thrift shop, secondhand bookshop, and you can just about guarantee you'll find a copy anywhere that sells books. And I kind of was like, I'm not really interested in the idea of like an evangelical Baptist family going to the Congo and like as missionaries, but one of my best friends, Sophie, says that it's actually like a really good story and that I should read it. So I last year relinquished and bought a copy, but I still haven't read it, so we're gonna do it this year. I don't know if Barbara Kingsolver's for me. Maybe I could pick up some of her other books, I'm not sure. Either way, this is gonna happen this year. Speaking of series, Real Estate by Deborah Levy, last one in her autobiographical living autobiography series to read. I have really enjoyed this trio of books and my reading experience. This one is a bit, I feel like I've got water damaged. Anyway, I only have this one left. I heard that this is not the best, but I don't know, I like Levy's nonfiction writing. It always feels really insightful. There's like a nice serious but lightness, levity to it that I quite get along with. I'm just looking forward to like completing that out. I got a new Deborah Levy book for Christmas that I'll pick up at some other point, but this is the final in that series that I'll conclude. I had to put a Toni Morrison on the list. I'm going to reread Sula. So this is also potentially a book that I can tick off the reread 3 books goal for the year. I read this many years ago, definitely before I started talking about books on the internet. Maybe it was like 2019. And I don't think I quite had the capacity to appreciate Morrison's writing at the time. So I am, ready to reread it and probably have my mind blown. So I'm looking forward to this. I remember the story, but I'm really looking forward to kind of bathing in the writing, the good writing of Toni Morrison. Skippy Dies by Paul Murray. I read The Bee Sting last year and absolutely loved it. Loved the storytelling, loved the family drama dynamic, but have heard that this is better than that book. So of course I have to start with his other novel that people rave about. I don't really know what it's about other than it's set in a boys' college in Ireland, Dublin, and that at some point a character named Skippy must die. I don't really need to know. When I know that I've enjoyed an author's work or writing, it's not really of importance to me to know like the ins and outs of the story. I'm just trusting that what people have to say about Paul Murray's novel, this one, is correct. And I'm looking forward to reading like another expansive, character-driven Irish novel. Penin by Vladimir Nabokov. I want to read this year because it's one of Zadie Smith's favourite books. It's an academic novel set in an American college about a Russian professor. It's supposed to be quite funny. I think I've not read too much Nabokov. I've read one of his very, very short, tiny books, Mary, which wasn't my favourite, but I feel like this will be a good place to go next. But I'm into kind of academia and a bit of humour, and if Zadie Smith said it's good, then I trust her wholeheartedly. Next, My Work by Olga Raun. I only just realised this year that it's pronounced Raun and not Raven. I read The Employees last year from her and loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it, loved it. It was one of my top books of the year. This is her fiction novel, but it's kind of bordering on autofiction. It's about the work of the woman, the labour of a mother and a wife and all that entails, and I've heard that it's really, really, really good. I think it's made it onto some people's top books of the year lists, so I'm probably gonna love it because I did really love The Employees. I haven't read some Zadie Smith in a while, so I thought I should add that to the list. NW is one of her more kind of, I think, what's the word that I want to use, experimental books. It's kind of like dealing with different formats. I think a lot of it is about music. I know that it was a book that heavily influenced Caleb Azuma Nelson's debut. What was it called? I'm blanking on the title. That wasn't my favourite book, but I'm always interested to see how that could connect to the work that it was referencing. Yeah, Zadie Smith is one of my favourite writers. Slowly making my way through her work. Don't want to rush it. And yeah, I feel like it's time to add another one to the red bank. A few more books to go. Another writer that I really, really love but haven't read enough of, All My Puny Sorrows by Miriam Toews. She's a writer, a Canadian writer who writes a lot about closed religious groups. I think she grew up in a Mennonite community, but left, and so a lot of her characters are kind of set in that world, and they feel very authentic and real in that way. Don't know what this is about. It's about two sisters. One is a world-renowned pianist who is happily married, wealthy, but wants to die. And the other one is divorced, broke, sleeping with the wrong men, and desperately wants to keep her older sister alive. Okay, that's an interesting story. So definitely dealing with some heavy topics, suicide, but I like the idea of the sister relationship and dynamic, because I feel like I want to read more of those types of stories, but it's always a bit hard to know which ones are going to be good. But I know that I like her writing, and I think that that's always a good place to start when you're not sure about like a theme in a book. Go with a writer that you know writes good stuff. Okay. Educated by Tara Westover. This was like the memoir of the year when it first came out, and I want to say like 2018. Bang on. And I've had this book for the longest time, but just never bothered to pick it up, and always kind of mean to, but I never do. So this is my, this is my kick up the bum to do that by putting it on this list. I think she grew up in a cult, and yeah, it was some kind of like doomsday family. And so I think she's just one of those people that has kind of like a wild, crazy story about growing up in this like eccentric, there's probably some trauma in their family. So I'm looking forward to finally reading this and understanding what it's all about. Okay, we've got another non-fiction, because I just feel like I really need to push myself to read more non-fiction. The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. The epic story of America's Great Migration. I wanted to read more about this American history after reading The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Obviously that book is fiction, but it's kind of loosely based in history and his own version of what the Underground Railroads was. This is definitely more of a historical reflection of a migration of African Americans out of the South during slave times, and I guess how America kind of developed from there. I don't imagine that this is going to be like a breezy, easy read. I definitely am less of a non-fiction reader in this kind of realm, but it's something that I am interested in, so I'm hoping that that will carry me through. Plus, I've heard this is like absolutely fantastic. Okay, the last book on the list is Green Girl by Kate Zambreno. I just have to take some time to say, like, appreciate that gorgeous cover. Even the pimple in the eyebrow is just like so good. I love it. Yeah, I haven't read any Kate Zambreno, and I really feel like I need to. This book often came up in my searches when I was trying to find like Clarice Lispector adjacent writers. This book always kind of came up. I don't know whether there's some kind of reference to Lispector in this book which made it come up in Google searches, but it's definitely the cover that kind of pulled me in and made me pick it up. But I can't even tell you what it's about because there's no blurb anywhere. It looks very kind of fragmentary. We've got no real chapters, but lots of fragment. I just saw the word. There's a quote from Clarice Lispector at the beginning of one of the chapters. So I am intrigued to see how this goes. Hopefully it'll be as good as my expectations of it are. Okay, those are the 20 books that I am looking forward to reading in 2025. Let me know if you have any of these books on your radar, if you're planning on making a 20 books for 2025 list. Let me know what you think of my list. Is there anything on here that you've read that you've loved? Let me know what you think overall. And I look forward to reading these books and then sharing my thoughts with you throughout the year. Okay, thanks for watching. Love you. Ka kite. Bye-bye.